When you think about living life on your terms, or when I do at least, one person comes to mind, and that's Dean Kozora. And if you've ever come across him, you know he is 100% unapologetically himself. And on this podcast, we cover tactical advice for personal and professional growth, resilience, the importance of proximity to the right people, as well as playing the infinite game of life. Fair warning though, Dean tells it exactly how he sees it, which is the main reason that I asked him to join me on this podcast. So you said something, you didn't say it. I actually read it on a post a fair while ago, and it wasn't something that you said, it was something someone said about you. And it was that sales is an infinite game.
Mm.
And then that was the one thing that really clicked on, and it made me realize like this guy, he's got it figured out. He's got it dialed in. But when you say sales is an infinite game, how did you come to that? What does that look like for you?
Are you ready for this, dude? This is going to be cool.
No kidding.
It's sitting right here on my desk, dude. I actually just had a consult with a guy. We're probably going to run his team a financial offer doing $1 million a month. And he's like, dude, I heard you on a podcast talking about how you view business. And I bought this book based on your recommendation thereafter.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the ideology there is that sales is an infinite game, but everything is. Like a finite game, and you read this in the book, it is a game that has a clear winner and loser. It has an endpoint. So at that endpoint, everyone goes home and does their own thing. So like if sales were a finite game, once I hit X amount a month or X amount of sales, I'm done. I quit. And so like I kind of view everything we do as an infinite game or everything that we want to continue doing. You can change it to a finite game and have an endpoint. Like people's careers are a finite game. But with what we do in business and sales, like it's a continuous learning pattern. Like there's no finish line, there's checkpoints. You come in and you believe that there's a finish line, so you sprint. And then if you cross that finish line, that's why we see people fall off. But if you truly play it right, you get close and you start to recognize the finish line keeps getting further and further. And as you get more intelligent, I don't think I'm that intelligent. I think my IQ's higher than most, but not like super high. You start to recognize that those finish lines are really checkpoints and you've passed them, but you've just not decided to stop because there's no point. And that's how I view sales is like, you learn, you fuck up, you learn, you fuck up, you learn new tactics, you work with new people, you go into new companies, you learn a new skill on how to network, you realize you can take on like 2 offers. And it's like it's a continuous climb, but the climb has nothing to do with skill or money. It has everything to do with what you need in that season of life. And that's how I mean by it being an infinite game is like we're not being judged by anyone. No one can tell me I'm winning or losing. Am I progressing? But not so much progressing in terms of like quantitative. Am I progressing in terms of what I need? Am I continuing to give myself what I need? Maybe it's less money. Maybe it's less time worked. Maybe it's a fuck ton more. I don't know. I can't tell you. But if you're being true and honest to yourself, living life on life's terms, how you want to, um, it can be an infinite game because you're pushing, you're pulling, you're going left, you're going right, you're giving it a tug, you're giving it a pull. It's like it doesn't matter. Like who gives a fuck, you know?
You just gave meaning to something that you said that I was going to ask a question about. And I like that you said checkpoints because I know particularly, and sales is the example we're using. I used to think that I would get to a point and I've got it. I've figured it out. And then I hit that point of maturity where I realized the more I know, the more I realize that I don't know. And those checkpoints, I was going to ask you about that. But then you said what you need in that season of life, because there has been points where I've gotten really good at something, or maybe I'm making a lot more money than I normally have. And the natural inclination for someone that's ambitious is I'm going to do more of this, but more is not necessarily better. So there are checkpoints that we hit. And I suppose the question I've got for you is how do we know when we've hit one of those checkpoints? And then by extension of that, what can we do to actually be true to ourselves at that point and genuinely use it as a checkpoint, an opportunity to check in on ourselves?
I think there's 2 types of people that we're going to view with this. First one is going to be they're going to hit that goal and they're going to celebrate it right away. You know, usually when people take 10K a month, right? That's the big hype.
Yeah.
They'll hit it and they won't actually hit it, dude. They'll hit 100K generated in the month and they'll say they made 10K and they'll just parade it around. And then there's the second
No,
type of person.
if they hit 100K in a month, they'll say they made 15K in the month. Just for
Yeah,
reference, that's salespeople.
it's like they'll hit it, and then they'll automatically, as soon as they hit it, it's like they cross the finish line, and they're like,
Mm,
yes. I think the other type of person is who I want to speak to more, and it's the individual who passes it and doesn't realize it until they're past it,
mm,
because as they start getting closer, like their goal changes. It starts to shift up, um, and you can really tell the difference between these two people.
mm,
So like, there's the first person that like they're just chasing it, and when they hit it, they parade it around and like, I did this. And there's the other individual that doesn't really remember they've hit it until they've looked back, because as they've gotten close, they've already like picked up on the next goal, and it continues to happen. And it's like the sales version of chasing the dragon. It's like,
mm,
dude, oh man, this is gonna get. We just shot some dope. We're chasing that high. It's like we're never
mm,
gonna get where we actually want to be. But
mm.
it's kind of an interesting topic, because these types of people, these are my people.
Mm,
It's individuals, and this is going to sound bad, but some people are going to relate to this.
mm.
These types of people, like, we have a hole, we have an endless
Yeah,
hole, a void in us that we're trying to fill, but we know we're never gonna, but we try anyways.
yeah,
And we try and pour more in there, we try and pour less in there. Our goals get bigger. Um, and maybe it's that we're just fucked up individuals.
mm,
Like, I think that could be very true, because I've met
mm,
with some very high level people, and I talk with some very high level people on a day to day basis, and I have some on my team. And I can tell you, dude, like, not trying to say these people have trauma, but these people have seen some shit.
yep,
And those are the types of people that, like, they'll blow past the goal and they won't even know they've hit it. And then it's
mm,
like, oh, dude, I hit 10K 5 months ago.
mm,
That's what happened with me. I
mm,
mean, dude, 2 months ago, like, if I actually paid myself what like most dumb business owners do, I would have made 100K last month, 100K the month before. I didn't recognize this until I looked at my P&L. And not that that number is big, because I didn't actually pay myself that. But I looked at my P&L and I was like, dude, I could go on the internet and talk about how I'm going to make 7 figures this year. Look at that. I'm the shit.
seven
No,
figure
I
run
don't
rate
care.
does it for 1 month.
Dude,
Yep,
exactly. Right. I can
yep,
go do, I don't care about that stuff. But like, that's the point I'm trying to make, is like, there's the individual that they hit the target and they've got to turn around and like fucking tell everyone, I hit it, bullseye.
mm,
And there's the other people that, like, the target just keeps getting further. They've hit the bullseyes, but they don't even realize they've hit it
mm.
until they go and look at the previous target.
And there are the thing about money, and this is an interesting one that I didn't truly understand. And I listened to a podcast a couple of weeks ago, and I think it put it into perspective. And people think that more money will make them more happy. But and this podcast really helped. It said there are essentially two scales. You have
Mm-hmm.
happiness, and then you have unhappiness. And essentially, when you start to make more money, it doesn't necessarily make you more happy, but it takes away a lot of the problems that make you unhappy. So you're not worried about paying the bills. You're not worried about school fees. You're not worried about rent, mortgage, whatever it is. But it doesn't make you more happy. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's where people start chasing the dragon, because they don't realize that this side, all of the worries, all of the anxieties, all of that sort of stuff starts to disappear. But it doesn't really fill this tank. And I think when people try and parade it around, they think that that's status, and that way people are looking at them like, oh wow, he did 100K, he did 10K, he did 15K. They think that that's going to fill that tank with that level of status. It doesn't, and it just takes away from here. And I'd never heard it explained that way, but now I think about it, it seems to map it itself out like that.
It does, man. One of my old managers back in the day used to tell me that money doesn't make you happy, but it sure does take away a lot of the problems that make you
Mm-hmm,
unhappy.
mm-hmm,
Because if most people were to name like their stresses in life, 8 out of 10 of them have to do with money,
mm-hmm,
for every single person.
mm-hmm.
Like, even mine, dude. I make a shit ton of money. I don't pay myself it, but like, oh my god, dude, I got to build this house. I got to take like, I don't have those stresses, but I force myself to have those stresses on purpose. But dude, that's
Mm-hmm.
amazing. Like, I don't think many people really understand what makes them happy. And truth be told,
Yeah.
do I know? No. I know it makes me feel good, but do I know what makes me happy? Like,
Mm-hmm,
that's a fucking deep question. We can get really philosophical there.
mm-hmm.
Um, I guess the question I would pose to you is like, James, what makes you happy?
Autonomy,
Autonomy.
because it's and So autonomy is the ability to live completely independent of someone else's rules, expectations, impositions. And because in a past life, even in corporate sales, I did well. I was, looking back now by comparison, I was not a good salesman. I had some
Hmm.
pretty crappy traits. I wasn't doing everything I needed to do. I actually caught up with my old sales manager when I was back home last week, and we had a bit of a laugh about it. But I realized that I spent a lot of my life living according to people's expectations of me. And I
Hmm.
had a real breakout moment when I was 26, and I quit my job. I moved my stuff into my friend's garage and I bought a one-way ticket overseas, because that pressure of James is this and he does this and he will do this, that for me, it was just crushing. And it's such a first world problem. So what
Hmm.
makes me happy now is I get up, I only work with people that I love to work with, people that treat me well, and by extension, I treat them well. I like being able to go to jujitsu for 3 hours in the middle of the day, uh, you know, go to the gym in the middle of the day, go for a walk, and just set up my life on my terms according to whatever makes me happy. And ultimately, like, I'm not a rude person. I'll never do it at the expense of someone else. But that feeling of autonomy and having control over myself and my life,
Hmm.
that is what makes me happy. And I think the best part about me having that realization is that's really broad. Autonomy means I can do what I want, when I want, with who I want. But then what does that actually look like? What
Hmm.
are those other things that I'm going to do? And for
Yeah.
me at the moment, it's just working on really cool projects, speaking to cool people such as yourself, and training jujitsu, going for hikes, going to the beach. Life is fantastic, and I've probably never been more grateful than I am right now.
Yeah. Dude, that's awesome. That's
Mm,
awesome. As you were talking, I'm thinking about what makes Dean happy
mm,
and its ability to choose. Kind of like being invited to the party, but still not wanting to go.
mm,
Like, choice is what makes me happy. I think
mm,
you can call that autonomy too, but I don't know if I view it exactly the same because, like, I could take off work the next month and no one would tell me anything.
mm,
It's about choosing,
mm,
which is a form of autonomy. And I think we're very similar in that matter. I will choose to not do that even though I can.
mm,
I will choose to do the hard thing even though I can choose to do the easy thing at any point.
mm,
So it's freedom, it's autonomy, it's choice. Like,
mm,
do I want to go spend the day with my son? I could tell everyone on my calendar today to fuck themselves.
mm,
What are you going to do about it, dude? Like,
mm,
nothing. My clients could fire me. Would it change anything? No, but I also, like, I respect my work. I respect the people I work with. And similar to yourself, I do good things with good people. Like, our mantra for the business is do good things with great people that's worth doing.
mm.
And so, like, if I did decide to take the day off, I don't think anyone would be upset.
Yeah.
Like, none of my clients, because I'm very transparent. Like, hey, man, like, I will give you everything I have, but nothing more than my family.
Mm,
And if I decide that they're more important one day, like, I would hope you do the same.
mm.
So it's the choice, even though I will choose to work more times than not. I like work, but not more than my son.
But there are tiers to that. That's exactly what I was about to say. You've got a little man now, you've got a family. There are tiers to what are important. And I think if you were stuck in a corporate job where someone told you that work was more important than family, it just wouldn't work for you. So you've
I would
created a
learn
life
jujitsu to fight
where,
them.
yeah, yeah, it just wouldn't work.
Yeah, I would have you teach me jujitsu through Zoom, and then I would fight them if they told me that. I'd probably still lose, but, like, they probably wouldn't want to fight me because I'm bigger than them. So, like, that's what I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
Dude. I love
Yeah.
that happiness analogy, though, dude. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. It helps explain a lot of things. And every now and then I'll find a little analogy or a little explanation that'll kind of just, it'll click things in. But I know you've touched on it a couple of things, but you're a very clever businessman. Very, very clever. And I know I've mentioned this to you before, and you were very humble about it, but you have created one hell of an ecosystem. So you've got hardly selling. So you have, essentially, you scale companies via sales, and like running sales teams and optimizing the business and everything like that, which inherently creates a bit of an issue of hiring quality talent in salespeople. So now you've got a sales coaching cohort at an incredibly cheap price that nurtures and grows salespeople solving this problem. And then you're working with some other very, very, very clever guys who have connections in a whole lot of other places. So this is, for lack of a better expression, it seems like a bit of a self-sourcing pudding you've put together there with all of the pieces coming together and building up. But what was, yeah,
Hey, ask your question. I got some good stuff here. This is funny, actually.
no, go. I was just going to say, how did we actually kick this off? But you go.
Oh, well, dude, I didn't actually ever want to be a business owner. That's the funny part of this all. Um, I had quit a job that I did really well at. I grew their company
Mm-hmm.
from 1 to 5 million a month, and if we want to be specific, 1.2 to 4.8 million in 5 months. So like maybe not five, but I'll round down and up. I don't. It doesn't matter, right? The
Yep,
numbers, they're great. I don't know many people that have done that. I actually don't know any.
it's massive.
So I'm one of one, but maybe
Mm-hmm.
one of a few. I'm sure there's others in big business that number ain't shit. But like, dude, I didn't want to be a business owner. I quit that job, and we had just bought a house in the country. And if you're popping, my wife's popping some balloons in the garage so she can work out there. I just built a new setup for her. But we had a party this weekend for my son with a balloon arch. I don't suggest anyone to ever fucking set one of those up. I wanted to jump out a window, not literally. But anyway, dude, I didn't really want to be a business owner. Quit that job, started working with a couple teams, made some small tweaks, gave them some really, really big lifts.
Mm,
And I was like, holy shit, it's not a fluke. I'm good at this, dude.
mm,
And the people just started reaching out to me. And they're like, hey,
mm,
can you help me with this? I was like, sure. Okay. Well, let me offer some mentorship just to like bring in some cash because I don't know what I want to do. And like, dude, everything I put out there, people bought. And then inevitably more people reached out for more help. And I was like, holy shit. Okay.
mm,
I should probably like bring a method to this madness. And I started doing a lot of things for a lot of people. And we started to recognize like I'm going left, right, front, and center, and back. I'm going 5 different ways for different people.
mm.
It's like, this
Yep.
doesn't work, dude. Like, what do I actually want to do? So we leaned into team management, which was the kind of the thing we wanted to do from the beginning because it's high leverage. We know what levers to pull quick. Then from that, we started getting into management training, like training managers, working with managers, because it's the same thing as working with teams, except I don't have to actually implement the shit. I just tell
Mm,
them how to implement it. So it's like it's even easier because instead of me doing the thing, I'm telling you to do the thing, and then you
mm,
just go do it. So I take all the like heavy lifting out, and then from there, it's like some people started jumping in quick. A lot of people did. We started to realize like, hey, we can also consult with teams. We can also train teams. Then we like partnered up with a couple good guys. I was like, we should offer some sales training at a low price. And the whole premise of me like starting to do this, I didn't want to start a business. I just wanted to bring efficacy to the marketplace.
mm,
And I didn't care if I made any money. I still don't care if I make any money from it because I'll be fine. Like I have a skill set. I can pull it and do whatever I need. But like all I wanted from it once we actually like formed the business was I
mm,
wanted to show people what it was like to be taken care of by a sales consultant because there's a lot of bad ones
mm.
out there.
Yep.
And I care for all my clients, dude. Like if they needed me at midnight, I would pick up my phone. Would I actually? Probably not. But like if it was serious, yes. Like I will do anything for them. And I wanted people to
Mm,
feel what it felt like to truly be cared about because I've had bad coaches.
yep.
Most of our clients have hired bad coaches, bad consultants. So I want to give them a different experience. So
Mm,
I have, and I do, and I try to do my absolute best with that. And it doesn't come from a place of like, here, work with my account manager. Like you sign in to work with Will, myself, Sean, and Peyton, you're
mm,
working with us. I'm not going to
yep.
hire other people to water down what we do. I'm not going to hire other people to like scale so we can exit. Like I want to be in the weeds because people are paying me for me. So
Yep.
like we started the business as a joke to troll all the sales trainers, but then we started to realize through trolling, we can actually show people what it feels like to be taken care of and what it
Mm,
actually is like to work with true people who give a shit. And that's just coming on the back end of seeing people working for people that don't give
mm,
a shit.
yep.
Um, and the funny part about it is like we've created this ecosystem and there's other things in the works that like I haven't even talked to you about. Like, so we have our sales training. It's $500 a month. Within that, do we train people? We give them 4 live calls a week with 4 of the people that have trained most of the trainers in the space.
Mm,
Most of them, not all the big name trainers. There's some out there that haven't actually been trained by them, but some of the big ones have. Charge $500 a month. It comes out to like $30 a live call. You can quit whenever you want. I'm not going to fight you for money. I'm not going to put you in a contract, but we put in a job board for there. I don't charge people to recruit from there. I bet the job. So they're always going to have opportunities because I'm always putting new people in there. Our teams have the ability to recruit from in there. So if someone's a fit, we train them and we work with them. And then at that point, like if they get hired on, we just cancel their payment because they're working with a team and they're already in it. But then we put our teams in here. Now we have a media buying agency that we're bringing in
Yep.
house. So, like, dude, if your ad agency sucks or your team sucks in terms of how you run marketing, we can do it for you as well. It's a flat fee, no percentage of ad spend. Oh, dude, we actually have an outbound team working with us now too. That if your setters just aren't fun or you have a big list, we can book more calls. Oh, guess what, dude? You have a Facebook group? We also have a Facebook group guy. And so, like, what we're building is like, I don't want to say one stop shop because that sounds real scammy, but
Mm,
we want to have someone in house for every lever someone could need sales wise.
mhm,
Like, if you have a problem, I want to be able to solve it. And it's not that I'm going to be your solution for everything. I may not be your solution at all. I may be your solution for every single thing you have. I don't know.
mm,
But when we're working with businesses, we want to give them the best. And giving them the best comes down to making sure that like we're not just like the best managers in the world. Because what I've learned is the best leaders don't have to be the best at what they do. They have to be the best at leveraging other people.
mm,
And so like my positioning as a leader, I think everyone on my team is better than me at a lot of things. The one thing that I have is I know how to leverage people,
mm,
right? I know Sean is a better sales trainer and a sales rep than me. I know Peyton is. I know Will is. I know Will's a better manager than me. He's way better with strategy. But what I do is I know how to leverage people. And so when individuals come into work with us, I'm sure Will and Sean and Peyton are just as good at this stuff too. I've just been the one that harnessed it and did it with my company. Like,
mm,
if I know we can help through them, or them, I can offer that ability to say, hey, we can do this here, we can do this there. We can work with your Facebook group here. We can actually take your list and turn it into calls and conversions. Hey, your marketing agency sucks. We can do this. I don't know
mm,
how to do all those things. I don't need to. Henry Ford didn't build the V8. Henry Ford just had the idea. He told people to go figure it the fuck out. But
mm,
when you think of the V8, who do you think of? Henry Ford. His hands
mm,
didn't get dirty, but he did
mm,
create it. And so, like, when we look at what we do, like, we're building an ecosystem that if people like what we do and we're getting them great results and there's something else we can help with, we will. And
mm,
ultimately, like, I don't put people in contracts because at any point, if someone says, I don't like the work you're doing, Dean, I don't want to hold them to it. I don't
mm,
want you to pay me if you don't like what we're doing. Like, I would much rather not have you pay me. And so, like,
mm.
for me, a lot of this is like doing what's right for people, but having that ecosystem so that when the right people come in, they can be serviced the way they want to be serviced, not the way I want them to be serviced.
Mm. So I listened to something a fair while ago, and I think it was Justin Welsh that was talking about it. And for if do you know who Justin Welsh is?
I've heard the name.
He's he's the LinkedIn guy. He's massive over there, and he said that when you are trying to create a business, he said pay attention to the market because
Mm-hmm.
when you put something out, it's going to solve a problem, but by extension, it will create more or it will uncover more. And I think most people get really caught up in this lane with the horse blinkers on and they can only see I must follow this path and they aren't seeing all of these red sirens off to
Mm-hmm.
the side of, well, there's a problem, can I solve that, or there's another one over there. And I think really successful people, they have an ability to look at those red sirens and assess, is that a shiny object or is that something that I can actually do? And I think I think some people do have shiny object syndrome, but I also think that's a little bit of a cop out for people who are too afraid to follow a bouncing ball or too
Mm-hmm.
afraid to try something new or too afraid for something to fail. It's like, well, sure, as long as I'm still doing this to a very, very, very high standard, why can't I try and solve that problem as well? And
Mm-hmm.
then once I've done that, like there's another one over there, let's go and do that. All you've done, I didn't know that you were doing the outbound, the media buying, the Facebook group.
No one
Amazing.
does. Just my announcement, dude. There they
Mm,
go. You heard it here.
That's exciting. That's exciting. And I think you having access, if we could break it down, it would probably be you have access to
Hmm.
high level people, you have access to a lot of salespeople, and um, you've created an ecosystem where you can connect with people that others possibly can't.
A CMO I worked with a while ago, actually, we were talking about some individuals that came into their team after me and couldn't do the same thing I did. They weren't able to bring
Mm,
it to the level I brought it to. Like
mhm,
they did well, but he's like, I don't think the CEO recognized like the strength you had. And I was like, well, what strength is that? And he's like, relational equity. He's like, your relational equity with people brings the right people in when you need them. You can snap your
mm,
fingers and bring people in.
mm,
And it's not that I know what I'm doing, I just know how to leverage people. And like that is probably the strongest trait in a management position, in a business owner position, because inevitably everyone's like, I want to do it myself. Well, so do
mm,
I. But hey, if James can do it better than me, dude, let me bring James in. Let me find a way to
mm,
cut James a piece of this pie. Let me
mm,
find a way to give him something for it. And I think where most people lose in that scenario is they want the whole thing.
mhm,
They don't think of second, third order consequence of if someone else does it better or if they don't do it
mm,
correctly. If someone comes into my business and I bring James in to help and James crushes it, second and third order consequences, they refer people to me for different things. So I
mhm,
feel more at the top. As opposed to if I don't, second and third order consequences, they talk shit about me because
mm,
Dean actually didn't fulfill on what he said he would. And
mhm.
so, like, everything that I think of when I'm building, and let me tell you, I'm unorganized as shit. So my building is just a bunch of Google Docs and some fucking 6 a.m. coffee thoughts.
Mm,
But everything I'm building is, I think about second and third order consequence of like, how will these people view me? And so long as I do this right, will these people feel cared about? Right? Will they talk about me? Not will I build some sort of like big brand, but like, will these people say good things if someone asks? Because that's
mm,
more important than money to me.
mm. That actually reminds me. So I'm 99% sure I got this correct. That you met Hormozy before he was Hormozy, didn't you?
I think he kind of was Hormozy at that point. And I'm going to tell you for a
Okay.
fact, he does not remember meeting me. I was in the
No, no,
traffic.
no, no. I know it was a while ago. But if I remember correctly, that ties into what you were saying before. So he said something. Actually, you know what you're going to say? There was a quote that you told me that he said to you that I think is very clearly reflected in the version of you that's seen in the world, how you conduct yourself.
Hmm.
Do you remember what that was?
So he was in the traffic and funnels office at this one
Mm,
point, and everyone's like, "That's Alex Hormozy," and I'm like, "Who the fuck is Alex Hormozy?" And they pointed to him, and he was bigger than me. So I was initially kind of bothered because I was like, "Oh, this dude's going to come into my office." I was a
yeah.
really low level employee. He's going to come into my office and be bigger than me. Fuck this guy. Um, and then like I went and listened. He was talking to a bunch of people. Um, I don't remember the exact quote he said, but it was do for others no matter what. Right? Give as much as you possibly can, and
Mm-hmm,
then you will receive.
mm-hmm,
And he said that in front of a few of us. And I'm saying it was directly to me, but I don't think it was. He
mm,
said it to all of us because he was in there meeting Taylor. He talked to a bunch of people, and the big ideology that he said was give.
mm-hmm,
And there was something in me that didn't like him at the time, probably because he was bigger than me.
mm,
But I also was in a state of growth, and I was like, if I don't like this person, it means that they have something that I want or need or
mm-hmm,
should have. And like the big premise was give with no intent to receive. And that is kind of what I took home. And
mm-hmm,
so I didn't really conceptualize it for years because I was in the beginning of my like making money stage and I thought I was a baller making no money. So I was trying to take. But
mm,
it hit me years later that some of the individuals I wanted to be like and wanted to have what they had, they were just giving away. And I'm like, holy shit, dude.
mm-hmm,
The burning bush has been in front of me this whole time. And so like it stuck with me and I started giving and I started giving. And most of the time in the beginning, people didn't even want what I have. They didn't fucking, I didn't have anything, dude. So I would try and give to everyone, not just in business, not just in sales, but like at the grocery store, dude. What we started doing, like the first year after I heard that, and it was kind of on accident, we would collect money to give a server a really big tip around Christmas. And the first year we collected like $600, dude. Nothing crazy, but I was like, holy shit, this is going to be a big tip.
Mm.
So I added another $200 in there, and we tipped this server. And dude, it was a little after Christmas the first time. I don't remember. It was like 5 years ago, but I remember the dude was in tears and like he didn't know what to say. And he walked back into the kitchen, kicked the doors open, and went, "Woo!" Just fucking stoked because he got like an $800 tip. And I was like,
Yeah.
dude, that felt good. I didn't take
Yeah.
pictures of it. I didn't record it. I didn't like snap a photo with it and be like, look what I did. It was give without intent to receive.
Mm.
Not from him receive, but receive from anyone. And it felt good. And we started doing that. And then I started doing it in business. I would meet with people and give them thoughts. I would audit someone's team and just tell them what I thought and maybe refer someone over. I would meet with a rep and say, hey, this is what I think you should do different. And like people started to like really enjoy it. And of
Mm.
course, like I'm not going to just like someone messages me, can I have this? I'm not going to give it to you. Like I'm not just going to randomly give you something because you ask, but I'm going to give when I see there's value and I see there's need. And
Mm.
it flipped my perspective on how business and life should be done because you will receive only when you give enough.
Mm.
And like, dude, I go to the gas station in the morning. If I buy a coffee, I buy three or four. I only take one. I'm like, the next three people that have the same size, just give it to them. Tell them it's on you. Go to the grocery store. I'll buy a $25 gift card. I'll leave it with the cashier. Put it toward the person's bill behind me. You know,
Yep.
like if there's someone like a cop, I like cops. I'm a big fan of the blue. If there's a cop behind me in line at any restaurant, I pay for the order, right? And it's all these little things of giving in work, outside of work, and then anywhere I can, because I do know, and I'm a believer in Jesus, God wants you to do for others without the expectation of getting anything back. And I do believe that thought process has not only helped people view me in a good light, but it's helped me
Mm.
become a better human because I don't want anything from you. This podcast, I don't want you to shout out my training. I don't want you to refer anyone over. I don't care. Like, I hope that this brings more people to you and more people pay you. And I say that from a place of I actually mean that.
Mm.
And I think that premise is what allows people to come back to me and allows
Mm.
people to want to pay me and allows people to want to work with me. And they're like, Dean's a good guy because you can sniff through someone's bullshit when
Yep.
they say that and they don't mean it. You can feel it. You can feel their inauthenticity.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think anyone's noticed that with me because I truly don't give a fuck.
Mm.
If you needed $1,000 right now because we're friends, I would give it to you and I wouldn't ask twice. I would probably not ask for it back either. Not that that's like a big deal, but like if you need something, I will help you. And please,
Mm.
no one message me about $1,000 because I will invoice you for 500 just for messaging me. Not really, but
Yeah.
you know what I mean.
Yeah.
That's the premise of like how I want to do things.
Mm. And the reason that I brought that up is it shows very clearly, especially over time. And I operate off a motto, and you'll probably understand this because when we first connected, we butted heads over a topic, and the saying that I operate by is I'm very hard to dislike over time
Mm-hmm.
because when people first meet me, I am 100% authentically myself, and some people are like, "Oof, who's this guy?" And you give the exact same energy, but then over time, like you can't fake being someone that you're not. And
Mm-hmm.
you are Dean, who is very authentically yourself, unapologetically yourself. You give, you care, you deliver at a really high level, and you have done that consistently over the whole time that I've known you. And I think that that idea of giving and giving and giving, I'm seeing that now as a theme across the people that stand the test of time. And I think there are people that try and nudge into the space or, nudge into the light, pretending to be someone that they're not. And then as soon as people have a look behind that curtain, they see the version of themselves that really exists, not the one that's put up in lights online. Everything
Mm-hmm.
crumbles.
Yeah, I was listening to a podcast. It's called the Sean Ryan Show,
Mm-hmm.
and it's an old Navy SEAL who
Mm-hmm.
just like brings people in who had some like fucked up shit happen overseas or things with the government. And he brought Jordan Peterson on, and they were talking
Mm-hmm.
about a topic regarding people faking who they are.
Mm.
and how it just eats at them and eats at them and eats at them until they become hollow inside, until they have
Mm.
to confront it and be honest with themselves and others that this is not who I am. And the
Mm.
reason that came up on there is because Sean Ryan had a bunch of people in the military and the SEALs who would say they did things overseas that they didn't. And then when he
Mm.
would talk to them after knowing they didn't do it, he could tell how hollow they were inside. And what it goes to show is that, like, you can wear a mask for so long, and you might even start identifying with that mask. But once you wear it for quite some time, what's below it fades.
Mm.
Like, you start to lose touch with who you actually are as a human.
Mm.
And maybe I was the same way when I first got in because I wanted to make a bunch of money. But I had a realization after one of the businesses I owned shut down. We shut it down. We were doing okay. It wasn't like balling, but we did okay. But I had a realization when I had to stop talking about how I felt online because I had a few clients refund. I was like, fuck that. If
Mm.
someone doesn't
Yep.
like who I am, they don't need to work with me.
Mm.
And then I started getting really honest online and really transparent and saying exactly what I wanted. And I was like, well, dude, if Facebook bans me, cool. I don't fucking care, dude. Um, and the exact opposite happened. My algorithm is just on fire. You're just going to see my shit all over now.
Yep.
I'm like, isn't that crazy how that works? I start making more money, more people like me. And I don't even hear from the people that dislike me from being honest because they're just like repelled away.
Mm.
And it's such an interesting topic because everyone has an authentic self,
Mm.
but there's a timidness in them to let it out. Like, people just don't want to let it out. They're just not willing to show the world how fucked up they are. Or they're just concerned that someone's going to judge them. It's like, hey, bro, we're all fucked up. We're all equally fucked up. Some of us just hide it better. I
Mm.
don't hide it, but I also just roll with it and make it look fun because it is.
But do you think that also has something to do with other people's expectations? Because we all go through seasons, and there are, I'm sure, 5 to 6 different iterations of Dean along the way, and a very very different version. And I
Oh,
know me, at least, when I started to do content because I wanted better closing gigs, and I didn't realize
mhm.
ultimately that that would be the key to me figuring out and being all of my preconceptions being tested. And I've learned so much by doing it. But what I mean by that is I set up a separate Facebook because at the time, the version you see now, very different than 5 to 10 years ago. And I know it's the same with you as well. And then I would have my old friends being like, look at you trying to be Mr. Big Influencer and all of this sort of stuff. Um, I think people are trying to be the version that everyone expects them to be. I don't necessarily think most people have the confidence or security in themselves to just say, you know what, I'm going to try and be whoever I need to be, and I want to be the version of myself that there is now. And you have all of that external pressure to not be you or the version of
Mhm.
you that you want to be or that you truly are. What happened in you that clicked in? Like, no, I am who I am, and that's what it's going to be.
That's a really good question, man. Um, I don't know what it was. I think my wife and I were trying to have a kid. That's exactly because I remember the time frame. My wife and I were trying to have a kid, and at that time, I started to recognize I was trying to mimic others, right? Because I
Mm.
thought that's what success was, and I was like, well, if I want what they have, I have to do what they do, right? It's a very common thing, and you do have to do what they do, but it doesn't mean you're going to be viewed the same as them, right? If they do sales, well, you have to do sales. Well, you don't need to speak like them. You don't need to focus on tonality. You don't need to do all these things. And I had this realization that, like, my son needs to grow up knowing who his dad is.
Mm.
And like, if I put on a facade and I'm not being real to myself, I'm not being real to him. So I had that realization and I was like, well, dude, I would rather have him respect and love me for who I am and not have all these things than have all these things and have his dad be a fucking phony. And
Mm.
like, that was the realization that I had. And bro, my wife wasn't even pregnant yet. We were
Mm.
trying, but like, through trying, your identity starts to like link up with what you're trying to become. And
Mm.
my identity wasn't there yet, but my identity was trying to link up with who I wanted to be as a father. And it
Mm.
was an honest motherfucker that didn't care and was just
Mm.
truly him. And so I was like, well, we got to break the ice. I'm going to say what I want to say. And I went online and posted something about Trump. And it was like, dude, got a lot of love, got a lot of hate. And
Yeah.
I just felt really good. I was like, man, I was like, I think I just got a little dopamine rush.
Mm.
And I'm an addict, dude. I'm a recovering. I like dopamine, dude. Dopamine's great. I think we all do. I like it more than most people. That's why I don't do drugs anymore. But like, I got a little dopamine rush, and I was like, "Ooh, boy!" Like, okay, like
Mm.
from being me, I feel better. It's like, what a fucking concept.
Mm.
And then, of course, my addict self, like, dude, there's no do this once, there's no do this twice. If I like it, I'm going balls deep, dude.
Mm.
So I was like, well, I'm leaning in, dude. Fuck everybody. You don't like it, leave. And that was my content. If you scroll back um, 2.5 years, you will see in my content. If you don't like this, you can unfriend me. I would tell people that. I was just so deep in it. It was so funny, dude. And people unfriended me, man. Good for them. Don't let the
Mm.
door hit you on the ass on the way out. I don't care. But I was so intense about trying to be myself that if you bucked it, I just kicked you the fuck out of my life. I
Mm.
don't need your shit.
Mm.
I just want the fans, bro. The fans that aren't really fans, but the people that are going to like continue to bring this dopamine up. And then over time, you realize that stuff doesn't matter. What really matters is, am I just being true to myself? Whether I get one like, 100 likes, or it doesn't matter.
Mm.
Because like the right people will come to you when you are you. The
Mm.
wrong people will come to you when you're not you. And then in 20 years, when you inevitably have to just show the world who's under the mask, oh man. It's like when
Yep.
Kane WWF, WWE took his mask off. People didn't know who the fuck he was.
Yeah.
Same thing's going to happen.
So I was really fortunate to work with a company, and I did the sales for them, and it took a very specific type of salesperson to do it. And they would work with very successful men, 35 to 55, the majority past 40.
Mm-hmm.
And these were guys that didn't have any accountability, didn't have any discipline. They were not showing up as a father, as a husband. They were not showing up for themselves. And they had this mask on for their whole life. And the ones, it was so well timed for that part of my life where I was figuring everything out. And I remember I spoke to so many guys that were in their 50s, and they had everything that anyone would strive for, millions and millions of dollars, a big business. But what they didn't have, they'd screwed up their marriages because they'd been hiding from who they were. They had not been present or spent time with their kids, and they were in their 50s and realizing that everything they'd been pursuing or everything that they'd been putting on, uh, it had been for nothing. And they had that realization, and they have to take that mask off sooner or later. They can't hide from it.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I almost think I know what company you're talking about, and I'm not on here to shout out, detract, or anything. So I put the name
yeah,
in the chat, but I think I know the one you're talking about, dude. I love them.
yeah. It's so it's not the one that you're thinking about, but
Okay.
they phenomenal company. They're actually Australian based, and I
Mm-hmm.
watched them allow these men to figure out who they were, what they stood for, what they were about, and it was unbelievably good. And
Mm-hmm.
you would watch, and that the indicator for me was you can hide from who you are, but there is a time, and you can either figure it out now or you can figure it out 20 years down the road when you can't get that time back.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm.
inevitably it has to come out.
Mm. That hurts. That's deep.
Yeah.
It,
Yeah.
it, it doesn't sound deep, but like when you actually conceptualize time,
Yeah.
holy fuck.
So there was one guy, it was a quote that I'll never forget. And he just sold his business, his company, for like millions and stupid amount of money. And he said, James, he said, I have all the money in the fucking world. And it did not change a thing. He's like, I lost my marriage, I lost my kids, and he's like, I'm sitting on this mountain of money that I worked for my whole life and thinking this was it. He's like, it's empty. It is absolutely empty. And just watching the epitome of what 99% of the population works towards, like he got that number. He built it, and to realize that that's not it. And one thing I said to you when we first spoke is that you and I are both chasing the same thing, but we just go about it in different ways. It's just a different medium in the same space that we're actually using. But one thing that I want to talk about, and you touched on it before, so you weren't always this ambitious, and you weren't always putting your focus towards business, towards growth. You said you mentioned before you've got a bit of a past, like with addiction and everything like that.
Oh
And I
yeah.
think that's one thing that that I'd really like to touch on, because I think most people think you have to be from a really good start, or an ideal situation to make things work, but that's not the case.
I think, dude, if you ask anyone that was in my life 10 years ago, would you bet on Dean living? 99% of them would have said no. That's the funny part,
Mm,
dude, because like I was on a sure path of death. Like I've shared this before and I'll share it on here, dude. Like 10 years and a month ago, it was like May 5th, 2014, I tried to kill myself because
oh,
my mom passed. And I was just like so deep in my addiction that I just didn't know what to do. And I
mm,
took enough pills that would kill most people. Like it really would. Like most people, 5 Xanax bars will put them off for days. But I took fucking 30 and I drank a liter of vodka. And I laid down in bed knowing damn well that I should be dead. But the part about that that actually like fucks me up now is at the time I was okay with it. Like
mm,
my mind, and I specifically remember thinking this, so I'm going to bed and I'm not going to wake up. I'm okay with this. And like waking up the next morning was probably the most insane thing in the world because like someone's no not someone but something like God slapped me in the face. He's like, yo, you shouldn't be feeling this way. You're 20 years old. And it took me a little bit to actually figure it out after that, because I was pretty heavily into drugs for years before it. Lots of pills, lots of powders, lots of everything, dude. Like whatever you had, I
mm,
was in for it.
mm,
The one thing I have to correct you on is I was ambitious, but I was ambitious about getting more drugs.
mm,
Like I would go to bed with no money and high. I would wake up with nothing, no gas in the tank, no, like just nothing. And I would always go to bed high with full stomach, nothing else. I'd always find a way.
mm,
And I think that right there, not that like, oh, that makes me better, but I had the ability to turn nothing into something every day.
mm,
Every day. I did some pretty fucked up shit to make it happen. And
mm,
there's a lot of things I can say that I'm not very proud of doing. I never did anything like, um, there's just a lot of stuff I can say I'm not very proud of myself doing. And we can
mm,
dive into details later, but I don't think this is going to be a drug log.
mm,
But it helped me recognize that like if you want it, you can have it. And I didn't recognize that till later on. But dude, when I got clean, I was just a fat, out of shape 20, about to be 21-year old. Well, I was 21 actually. I got clean 7 days after I turned 21. I was just out of shape. I didn't have anything. I was in Florida. I had no money, no job, no car. I was just in this halfway house, just coming back to reality, like starting to feel feelings again and starting to like know what life was. And I was like, holy shit, all these people I've known since I was 5 are graduating college, and I'm over here detoxing off drugs, smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day. Um, and there's just always been something in me that wanted more. Right? I mean, that's why I did drugs. And when I
mm,
started going to rehab after that and meeting with the counselor, they kept telling me not to do things. They were like, don't go to college, like just focus on your recovery. I'm a rebel, bro.
mm,
You tell me not to do something, I'm gonna do it, even if it hurts me. So like I just was like, okay, fuck you. I'm gonna go do it. So I left Florida 3 months later. I was like, I'm gonna go back to college. She told me I shouldn't do it, so I'm gonna do it. So I went and did it. I graduated college. Cheated my whole way through. Doesn't matter. I did it. I just wanted the goal. And the thing that I've learned about myself is like I become so goal oriented that I'll do anything to make it happen. Not that I'll be
mm,
unethical, not that I'll steal. I will cheat if the internet allows it. You know what I mean? Like just like AI allows us to cheat on copy, I don't use that. But like I'll find ways to make it more simple. I will utilize what I have to make it easier. But like I came from I don't want to say nothing. My parents had money, but dude, my mom lost our house because she died from drug use. My dad moved, lived in another house, kicked me out because he didn't want me there anymore because all the drugs I used. So I essentially like we had a great uprising, and then everything was gone, and I was like, oh fuck, I've got to figure out how to pay for college. I've got to figure out how to pay to live. I've got to figure out how to work. I've got to figure out how to do everything. And
mm,
so like I had to restart my life at 21. I'm
mm,
30. It's been 9 years. It's coming up on 10 years. I have everything I want. And it's not because I'm
mm,
better or I had more things. It's just the big differentiator between myself and other people is whatever it takes. I will do whatever it takes. And I think that comes from the drug use and a little bit of me fucking up my brain chemistry from so many drugs. Like I don't have a very, very big spout of emotion. I don't cry much. I don't get upset much. Not much bothers me. And I think there's a bit of chemical mishap in my brain from all the drugs I've used, truthfully.
Mm,
Say that honestly and open. But like when I look at someone who's like just chugging along in myself, I just do more than them. I'm not smarter. I didn't study more. I didn't learn more stuff. It's just the reality of like myself is I am just willing to do more than most people. And it's like, dude, you'll probably beat me in sales. You're probably a way better salesman. But if we were to compete, I would just find a way to outwork you. You still might get
mm,
better results than me. But where I would put my pride in is that I worked 7 more hours a day than James.
mm,
Because like I focus on the work and through the work over time, consistency over time, you fuck up enough to learn what does work. And I
mm,
have fucked up enough times to figure out what works in this area, what works in this area. But it's all come on the back end of learning what doesn't work.
mm,
Because you learn more. Matthew McConaughey said, you learn more about your identity from doing things and not liking it than you do from doing things and liking it. So conversely, you learn more from doing things and failing than you do from doing things and succeeding. And
mm,
that's been the mantra of my entire life. I can't drink beer anymore. Well, because I tried and I drank too fucking much and I ended up in jail. I can't do drugs. I tried and did way too much and I ended up in trouble. And it's like I have learned from the opposite end, the negative side, than I have the positive. And that's been the mantra, but it's helped me become really well. And honestly, like I said in the beginning of this little spiel I have, my little TED talk here on James's podcast, thank you for attending, by the way, is like most people would have bet on me dying 10 years ago. My family would
mm,
have bet on me dying. My sister, if she listens to this, text me. Tell me what you think. I'll post a screenshot on Facebook. Did you think I was going to die 10 years ago? She's going to say yes. I promise you that. And it
mm,
was no confusion. So it's a miracle that I'm here. It really is. I
mm,
think that I'm here for a bigger reason. I don't know what it is, but I'm going to continue fucking up until I figure it out.
mm, mm. So you always had the intent. It was just the application that you chose or the application that you had at that point in your life was not necessarily healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but you said something in there as well, and there's a quote by an Australian guy. I got a lot of respect for him. His name's Cal, and one of his favorite quotes is "Imperfect action creates momentum, and momentum creates clarity." So
Mm-hmm.
you understand, like as you said, making mistakes and screwing things up. That's what creates the clarity, and I think you know your ability to outwork someone. I think that's absolutely one of your attributes, but I think it's also your comfort with failure, with messing up, with not getting things right. And I think it's so much easier to not necessarily, you know what? I think at this point it is easier to try something, learn, fail, because I think a failure that you've learned through discomfort is so much more of a lesson than something that's actually told to you. You've gone down a lot of rabbit holes. You've found what's on the bottom of a lot of barrels. You know what you want, and you also know how to decide that, you know what, this is not something that I want. And
Mm-hmm.
that's just such a superpower. And most people never put themselves in a situation where they can feel what the bottom of the barrel looks like. They don't put themselves in positions where they can fail, and they don't in the end end up trying too many things. Whereas I feel like you've been on the extremes for a long time.
I like extremities, dude, a lot.
Mm.
And there's a thought. I forget who said it. I can't quote him, but whatever. Do you know the difference between winners and losers?
No.
The winners got up and tried one more time, right? Because I don't think
Okay.
anyone goes into anything with the intent of failing. And
Mm.
I can say this from a lot of like heartbreak with things that I've gone into and thought it was going to be my forever gig. Like, dude, my first business, I started the fitness business. I had all intent of it being amazing. I was heartbroken when it didn't work. My
Mm.
second business, the fitness consultancy, I'd worked with some great people. When we actually had the conversation about shutting it down, I was shattered, dude. Because
Mm.
I was going to become a millionaire through that business. That was going to be my everything. And so, like, I don't want people to think that, like, you should go into things with intent of failing because then it actually brings down your work ethic and ability, right? You won't
Mm.
put in as much work if you know you're going to fail. But, like, you have to be okay with the outcome, whether it's good or bad. Just like a sales call, right? You have to be okay whether you close the deal or not, because it's not so
Mm,
much about the deal, it's about bringing clarity to what's next for that person. And for
mm,
every endeavor we go in, the way I view it, the way I view like my life, and I try and tell this to people, is everything you're doing is a stepping stone,
mm,
right? Like this business I run, bro, this stone might be 10 years, it might be 10 months, it might be 10 days. I don't know. But the
mm,
thing is, if I stay on too long, I rob myself the opportunity from what's on the next stone. And I've learned that within opportunities, it's very similar, right? We're all in different places. Most people listening to this, if they listen to this again in a year, they're going to be in a different place, a different job, working for a
mm,
different person. And you need to recognize that going in everywhere, that you're not going to be there as long as you think you are. You are there to learn, grow, develop. And then from there, if you don't have room to grow there, you need to move somewhere else.
mm,
And you'll know when it's time, because if you're doing the right things, you'll feel it. Other opportunities will present themselves, or mentally, you'll just know that I need to start looking. But like everything we do, it's stepping stones, and you just need to hop along, right? Maybe your stone's 10 years long on this one. I don't know. My
mm,
business might be around the next 20 years. If it's around the next two and then we have to hop from there, am I okay? Yeah. The only reason I'm okay with that is because I've failed so many times that I understand like we're working toward endgame, but endgame has nothing to do with the place we're in now or the business we're in now. It has everything to
mm,
do with what we kind of talked about in the beginning of this call is learning more, getting better, like
yep.
trying to enhance who we are as an individual and not setting that like finish line, but having a checkpoint. And every checkpoint is a new hop to a new stone. And that
Mm,
I have this like weird thought. I even see it in my mind. Like I visualize it very well of like hopping down a river stone to stone. And that's how I see the journey I'm on is it's like it's stone to stone. This stone might be pretty big. I don't know.
mm,
But I'm gonna walk it until I see something else that makes more sense.
mm.
It's a
I was
very weird thought.
actually that I was listening to a podcast last night, and it there was one quote in there, and it said that most people cement their beliefs about life, their place in the world, and their view of the world at 25.
Oh nice.
I don't understand. I was an idiot when I was 25. The version of me now, I'm glad that that version existed because it taught me about myself, what I want, what I don't want. Uh, but I couldn't imagine going through life viewing the world that way.
No, no, no. I think there's this imaginary box that the world draws around people
Mm,
and they believe they have to operate within it.
mm-hmm,
And it's an imaginary box, dude. Right? The things holding us down the most are in our head. I don't know if
mm,
you ever seen the picture of the elephant chained to a chair and he's not
mm-hmm,
able to go anywhere. It's like, well, your belief that you can go somewhere or that you can't go somewhere is what's stopping you.
mm-hmm,
Right. So we all have this imaginary box. And I try and teach this to my salespeople as well because salespeople operate within a box. And I was like, you're not set to just these things, even
mm-hmm,
within our system. Like you need to break the ideology out that it has to be this way. You have
mm-hmm,
to break your ideology out that you have to do things a certain way. And you have to just like open your eyes, take the blinders off, and see what the fuck's actually going on. Because
mm-hmm,
then and only then do you see the true nature of what you can do. And like the more you open your eyes, the more you realize, like, fuck, I
mm-hmm,
was a little speck in a big ocean and I was only
mm-hmm,
looking at the speck. But as you start to break it and open it and turn around and look left and look right, you start to see opportunity everywhere. Like as I talked about earlier, like, dude, all these different things we have to business. If I was only focused on managing teams, I wouldn't see these opportunities to help other people. And it's like you need to take the blinders off, you need to break out of the box, and you need to recognize that outside of rules, regulations, and compliance, there's actually no rules, right? Number one rule is there's no rules. Be compliant, be ethical, don't break the law, don't be an asshole, right? There's really no
mm-hmm.
rules, but be a good human, especially when it comes to what we do. Like no
Yeah.
one can tell me I can't do something. If they tell me I can't, I'll go do it just to prove them wrong.
But you've pushed that ceiling for a long time.
Oh,
You've
yeah.
always pushed that ceiling. You've always pushed it higher. And an example that I think you would like. Uh, so I don't know if we've talked about this too much, but I used to be a real gym boy. Early 20s, early to mid 20s. I was pretty big, pretty strong, uh, quite strong. And I'm not that version anymore. I do a lot more jiu-jitsu, and now I just do weights for injury prevention, which doesn't seem to work too well. But anyway, uh, and I know now. when I go into the gym and I'm deadlifting 100 kilos, because I don't go too much above that, that's easily under half what I used to do. And most people, I remember when I first got that 100 kilo lift, my mates were there, we're all G'd up. I was on so much pre-workout, it wasn't even funny. My ears were ringing, my eyes were pretty much vibrating from so much caffeine and beta alanine. And I hit that 100 kilos and it was like, oh, massive. Whereas now I'll go in a couple of times a week and I'll do that really slow reps. And in my brain, it's because I know my ceiling is so much higher. And if I want to get back to that 200 mark, I know for me, that's a few pretty consistent months.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if we take that one analogy and apply it to life, if we've never really pushed that ceiling, if we've never really got to that failure point and then push past it, we never really know what we're actually capable of. And I see so many young guys now just trying to be the most exceptional, amazing salesperson, which is fantastic. It's great. But they're chasing they're chasing that one finite game thinking that there's a finish, and they're missing all of the cool things that are happening around them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the people that do a lot of cool consistent stuff, they've done a lot of that, pushing the ceiling, chasing higher, and seeing what else is there.
I make mistakes there too, man. Like I operate within extremities.
Mm,
I'm either all in or I'm all out. Like that's why I'm a large human being is because like I don't there's no 70% Dean.
mm,
Like if I'm not working, I'm completely clocked out. Right? If I mean, dude, even if I'm with my family, like I'll be working still sometimes. When I'm not, like don't fucking talk to me. When
mm,
I'm in the gym, I'm all in. When I'm
mm,
bodybuilding, I'm all in. Like I've just found for myself, and I haven't figured out the balance side of this. I don't think there is, truthfully. I
mm,
tried it. I failed. I've actually been worse in more areas than not by trying. But I've found when I don't allow balance in my life, I feel more balanced.
mm,
Like, and it's not just from like one area or another. Like, if we look, we have work, we have family, we have fun, we have activities. Like, I mean, we can name a couple other, but let's just use those four for example. If I'm going 100% in this area, I'm present in these areas.
mm,
Yeah, I'm not 100% present, but like I'm pretty high on the scale. But
mm,
when I'm not 100% in any of these areas, I become 50% in all areas. And
mm,
it's because there's something in my brain, right? I think my brain chemistry is off from all the drugs I've done, or maybe
mm,
it's why I did drugs. Is I have to be all in something all the time. The one
mm,
time I tried to quit bodybuilding, I did this twice actually. I just became such a miserable human being. I was
mm,
depressed. I just didn't like what I was doing. My work suffered. Didn't want to. I just wanted to sleep all day. And so, like,
mm,
I found for myself that I need to push that ceiling in one area at least. And maybe that area is like, I'm just being the best dad I can be. And like while we were on vacation, that one area was just like being the best husband and father I could be. And everything else slacked. But it's okay because I felt really fulfilled by pushing that to the max.
mm,
And like right now, I'm training hard. I'm eating a lot of food again because I don't know where else to place that energy. I have to push that ceiling, but I am recognizing that from pushing it, there's a lot of things that I probably missed out on and probably still am. I see them more clearly now because I've pushed it so fucking high.
mm.
And like I'm trying to
Yeah.
find that balance, but is there balance?
No, I don't think there is. I don't think there is because, I mean, everybody's different, but this is a thought that I've been pondering the past few months in particular. I think how you do one thing is how you do everything. And what ticked over for me was, for the past few months I've had bit bit of a bit of a click in the shoulder, bit of pain, been doing rehab on it, and even when I go in and train, I can't train hard. And just for example, I've always been the big boy in the jiu-jitsu gyms. Always. They call me the little big boy in the gym that I'm in because we have three colossal sized humans. And then there's
Mm-hmm.
a couple of guys between, size wise, between me and them. And I never say no to a challenge. It's just the type of person that I am. But I've had to. And I had to go in and I had to half ass things. I wasn't able to train as hard as I normally did. And then I found that when I wasn't training as hard as I normally would there, it'd be the same in the gym. And then I started relaxing on a couple of things work wise where I normally wouldn't. And then I
Mm-hmm.
clicked on, I was like, hang on, I'm not giving 100% there. So I'm not giving 100% here. And then I'm getting relaxed here. And it was this cascading effect. And in my head, it was like, okay, I need to give 100% within my capacity here and do what you can do. And as soon as I switched that back on, everything fell back into place. And
Mm-hmm.
that feeling for me now, being aware of catching it early, why am I not showing up here? It's because I'm not showing up there. And it's because I'm not showing up there. I think we need to have that extreme.
Can I ask you a question? It's going to be off topic, but it'll make sense
Mm.
to those that it makes sense to. Have you ever gone through some fucked up shit in your life?
I have.
Oh, dude, that's why we're here, bro.
Yep.
This is why we're here. I have a weird thought process, and I think it's justified
Mm.
that those who are similar like us that just can't stop or slow down and always go to the extremity, we
Mm.
rise to the top first and
Mm.
foremost. But it's because we're trying to fill something that's unfillable,
Mm.
right? Pandora's box is open and we're consistently trying to close it, but more shit keeps coming out.
Mm.
And that's kind of my philosophy after talking with a lot of high level people, right? Sitting down and just having conversations. And I don't ask them what happened, but
Mm.
you can tell through talking to them and where their sense of humor is that they're a little fucked up, dude.
Mm.
Like, it's not that they're like bad people, but they've seen some shit. And it doesn't
Mm.
mean that they've seen dead people or they've killed people, but they've seen their own bit of traumatic stuff. And it has helped them or tainted them, whichever way you want to view it. I say helped,
Mm.
to the point where they just are always having to do more because they need to prove to themselves that they are who they say they are.
Mm.
Because when you ask, like, hey, you've created a really good ecosystem here, I downplay it because I have to continuously prove to myself that I am who I say I am. And I don't
Mm.
actually believe I am who I say I am. Like, to be
Mm.
real, I probably view myself 7 notches lower than I actually am. And that's pretty low. There's other people who are like, oh my God, like they get on a meeting with me and they're like, I'm talking to Dean. I'm like, dude, I'm not special. I'm special to my son and my wife. Everyone else should think I'm a fucking idiot. Right?
Yeah.
Truthfully, that's the way I think. And
Yeah.
I feel like I always have to prove myself to myself, not
Mm.
to anyone else. But like, oh man, like I'm doing all these things. Like, do I deserve this? Well, let me work hard enough to make sure that I do.
Mm. Mm. But I think a part of it as well is you've shown yourself a version or a life that you don't want. You know what's there, and you're never going to be a guy that gets to his 40s or 50s and has a midlife crisis and goes out and starts partying and doing all of that sort of stuff. That's done. You know what you don't want, and now it's full steam ahead because you know that that's not coming.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
you
dude.
have a cup to fill with regards to the life that you actually want. I think you've lost a lot of that ambiguity or uncertainty just based off what you've done.
Yeah, dude. Just putting a note in the chat for you really quick.
Cool.
I got some time still. I got 20.
Cool. That's okay. That's okay. So, a question for you.
Uh oh.
Ha.
Uh oh, bro.
So if you, I'll ask. I think we'll get a little bit specific on the space that we work in.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are probably two sides to the question. So, I feel like at this point, there has never been more information about how to be successful in what we do. But there is also a lot more competition and a lot more conflicting information. So if you were to give someone advice on whether it is even our space or something else, on how do I sift through everything, how do I level up, how do I actually put myself in a position that they would feel is their version of success.
Mm-hmm.
Someone on the come up, what advice would you give them?
The first one is question everything and use your intuition.
Mm.
Because the one thing I've learned early on, and I didn't listen to it, is if it looks like shit, if it smells like shit, if it acts like
Probably
shit,
shit.
it's probably shit, dude.
Yeah.
So question everyone and everything, because there's going to be people who say they've done things that actually haven't, but there's going to be people who haven't said that they've done things who have done a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
It's usually the quiet people or the people that aren't parading around with results that
Mm-hmm.
have gotten some pretty wild results.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, if you want to know who to listen to, like, talk to the people who give off a vibe without
Mm-hmm.
having to prove it to you consistently. And
Mm-hmm.
if you don't know who those people are, Or you can shoot me a message on Facebook and say, hey, I listen to James' podcast and I'm looking for someone that does this. And I'm not saying go hire them because I don't think you should, but I can at least point you in the direction of someone who you should probably start listening to.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not that you need to pay them shit, but like through information sifting, like you can find the real people by
Mm-hmm.
asking individuals. Like, what do you think of Dean? What do you think of James? What do you think of John? Like, you ask people what they think, but ask people who have some sort of credibility in your books. And then when you start listening to the right people, right? I mean, you do technically bring them in your circle, but you bring them in your mental circle. Jim Rohn says you become the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with most.
Mm-hmm.
And when you surround yourself with their content and you surround yourself with the way they do things, you start acting and thinking the way that they do. And then
Yep.
what ends up happening is inevitably you level yourself up. I had a one-on-one with a client the other day. I actually do one-on-ones with our collective clients randomly. And he asked me, what would you do in my position? And I said, no, because you are just
Say
blaming
that
everyone.
again. Your mic cut out for a sec.
The number one, stop being a pussy because you're blaming everyone for your
Yep.
shit. Yep. And number two, you need to get around a better circle of people. You need to start talking to better people. You need to start having better people in your corner. And from that, they will help you think bigger. So, like, you need to get around people bigger than yourself. The individuals I hang around with, I feel stupid when I'm hanging out with them. I have felt more dumb the past 7 months of my life than I ever have before. And I'm also the smartest I've ever been. But I've put myself in positions where there's individuals that are 10x me, 20x me, 30x me. And when I hear them talk, I'm just like, holy shit, my mind is not worthy. So I try and put myself in those positions. And when you do that, you inevitably become better. When you do that as well, you're going to get introduced to people who have better opportunities for you. When you get in there, like, you need to work your ass off. It's not a matter of having the best skill set. It's about doing the most and trying to learn the most and trying to ask the most questions. Because when someone comes onto one of my teams, if it's someone new and they outwork everyone, but they suck, but they're asking questions, they're trying to get better, bro, I will give you all of my day. I will pour into you until you can't take any more. And it's like, those are the types of people that I want to work with. But also, like any other good leader in the space, they understand that they're not about to get a James or a Dean on their team. Like, it'd be a blessing if they got a James on their team, a curse if they got a Dean. But like, if they got someone on their team who was like just hungry as shit, willing to do it, wanting to ask questions, willing to fail, like, they're going to pour into you more than you can even fucking imagine. And that in itself is going to bring you up from a skill set aspect, from a work ethic aspect, but it's going to put you in an even bigger circle because people will notice that. Right. And you continuously do that over and over and over within different places, within different companies, with different people. And it's going to take a little bit, but you will have everything you want. But the big thing there is you need to work your ass off, big things. You need to ask questions and you need to be willing to fuck up, right? Not that you want to fuck up, but you need to be willing to. And like, it's the most basic advice, but it's like, if you master the basics, you become a master of everything. There's no certain like tonality, there's no certain like word track, there's no certain like way to network that's going to get you there. It's consistent inputs over time of the same shit. Like, dude, how did my biceps get this big? Well, I've been doing the same bicep curls for the past 9 fucking years. Same ones. I just made them a little bit harder. How did my legs get so big? Well, I did the same exercise I did 9 years ago. Did I just do more weight? I just push a little harder. It's like, it's not fucking rocket science, man. It is consistency over time with the right actions. Like, that is it. And it's like, well, you want a better answer. If you want to pay someone to tell you some like very philosophical shit and you feel good about the answer, but it doesn't actually get you the result, you can do that. I've never paid a mentor to teach me sales. I paid one mentor in my life, one. And truthfully, like, he didn't give me much tactic wise. He helped my brain. He helped me see things differently. And it wasn't that he changed the game for me, but he changed the way I looked at things, which changed the game for me. I've hired one mentor. He didn't give me some wild shit. Most of the time, he told me to shut the fuck up. Some of the biggest shit he ever told me, just shut the fuck up and stop thinking. Like, dude, you're way overboard. Like, you don't need to do all this. And like, that was the biggest game changer for me, is simplifying the process and getting my mind out of the weeds and into the basics. What do you actually need to do?
Yep.
Mind blowing.
Yep. So just to summarize, and I think this is a big thing that you've just mentioned, and it's If we had longer, I'd tell you a few stories. But I think there are a lot of people that are going to shout from the rooftops, "I'm this, I'm that, I've done this, I've done that," and especially in the kind of work that we do, and the majority of the time, it is not the case at all.
Oh,
And I think it's a story I can probably share on a future one. But I had a very good sales manager early on. Uh, you know what? I'll share it. It's only a quick story, and this is a big reason why I never share income. Uh, it was early in my sales career, and we went and saw a client, and he was a real estate agent. And I remember I sat down. It was my first week in this new job. It was selling software, and this real estate agent sat there, and I remember it so vividly. He's saying how he just sent the BMW back. The new Merc's coming next week. I got listings on listings on listings, and he was talking about how he just got a new set of boobs for his wife, and everything's going well. And my boss, like, I walked out with him, and I sat in his car, and he said, "Never, ever be that guy." And he said, I spoke to his friends on the weekend. He's begging them for listings. He said the Beamer didn't go back to get the new Merc. It got repossessed by the bank. And he said, I know those new boobs, they're not for him. They're for her new boyfriend. And he
mm,
said, as a salesperson or in business, he said, if you brag about how much you earn, one of two things will happen. One, people will think you're lying. Or two, people will resent you for it. And I
mm-hmm,
still remember that feeling of sitting in the office and seeing that guy. And now when I see people talking about, I'm this, I'm that, I've done all of this, I've been on the teams with those guys, and I know that they're not making that amount of money. So I
mm-hmm,
think what you said about asking people that actually know, is this guy legit? Is that person legit? That's when you're going to get your real answers.
you need a mixed bag too.
Mm-hmm.
I could start naming some names, bro, but I'm not gonna. I'm not here to shit on anyone's stuff.
Yeah.
Um, we do that in private, and
In
we
private
will,
after the
we will,
recording.
we
Yeah.
will. But yeah, dude, that's hilarious, man. I mean, that's the truth of it. Like, and the thing is, like, if you glorify someone based on what they make, you're an idiot,
Mm-hmm.
because like that does not tell you any sense of intelligence. It tells you that they've made money,
Mm-hmm.
nothing else. But as we've talked about, like when you make money, it brings down your unhappiness. It doesn't raise your happiness. And everyone has that conception. I'm going to use that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to probably quote you on it too, that you've learned it somewhere else. But that just brings me back to the original thought process of like people think happiness equals money or money equals happiness, but it doesn't.
No.
And dude, we're starting to teach about this a little bit in our program. And don't sign up for it, guys. I'm not here to sell it. Like, please don't. Um, Pay James to learn how to get better jobs. He's amazing. But we're starting to teach the ideology that like the whole industry sells you on solving your immediate problem.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, when you solve your immediate problem, everything that's a problem past the immediate problem is still there.
Mm-hmm.
What happens when your problem past that one shows up, but all you've done is worked hard enough to solve your first one? Well, now you're fucked with your second one and your first one comes back because you're so stressed out because you haven't planned for the future. Like there isn't enough in this industry outside of JD teaching people how to have a career. Oh, Patrick's doing some with it too. How to
Mm-hmm.
have like a true career in this. Not how to make 20K a month, but like how do I build a career out of what I'm doing? Because a career, not, I mean, in terms, it's doing something over a long period of time that you're successful with, but like a career in terms is like setting yourself up for the future. And I think we need to start changing people's minds from I made this per month to this is what I've done the past 5 years. That's impressive,
Yeah.
right? If I see someone who's done well in this industry for 5 years and they have the goods to show for it, that impresses me. When someone says I made 50K this month, I'm like, cool. Congratulations, dude. What are you going to do with it? I hope you don't buy
You,
something stupid. That's a
you
big
can't
tax bill
hide it.
too.
Oh,
It's
tax.
a big tax bill too, bro. So like,
Yeah.
hope you don't spend it all. But like,
Yeah.
it's a really funny industry because it's all like, what can I do this month?
Mm,
But what I'm really impressed by is the individuals that do it over time.
mm,
And it took me a bit. It took me until I had a kid to realize that like the goals we have to be expanded because we can hit shit on the short term.
mm.
But like, what am I actually working toward?
I think people, I think people that are really close to me, if they hear me say focus on the longer time horizons again, they're going to get on a plane, they're going to find me, and they're going to beat me up because I say it all the time. Focus on the longer time horizons. But one more question, and then we'll wrap up because I know you've got a little bit of a time constraint as well. So,
Got a son to take care of so my wife can work out.
of course, of
Family.
course. So, a question for you in the spirit of sales. So, who are potentially one or two people that you think that I would enjoy speaking with and would potentially enjoy coming on the podcast and having a conversation?
Oh, that's a good one, dude. That's a really, really good one. Um, I want to say the first one would be Will Hinkson. He works with me. The
Yeah.
reason I say that is when we talk about expanding your timelines, expanding your horizons, he's a great example of that. He's been through the space, he's been in with some of the big companies, he's been inside of them, he's built them, he's grown them, and he's with me for the fun and having a good time. And he really does what he wants as he wants to do it. Will would be a really good person to have on. Past that, um, I should have thought of this when you gave me the thought earlier. I definitely should have, but I'm just like,
That's okay. That's okay. I've heard a lot of good things about Will, a lot, and I didn't actually know of Will until recently. And it seems as though he's one of those people that's not, not in the spotlight. Will's one of those guys where if you were to sit down and talk to him and leave, people would be like, "Do you know who you were just talking to?" That's
mhm,
the energy and that's the aura that I get. So, would you be happy to connect me to Will?
of course. Of course. Will would be a good one. And I'm trying to think, dude. Um, I'll have to message you about the next one because there's a lot of good people. But when I think about living life on life's terms, like I'm trying to find someone who is a very similar character to us
Mm,
because I have other people on my team who I think are great, but who actually impresses me consistently on a day to day basis? My team does, but in reference to what we're talking about here, he's number one. And I'll message you with another person, dude. I'll
perfect.
message you with another person. Um, it'll probably come to me right after the podcast. I'll be like, there it
That's the
is.
one.
That's how
That's
it's going to
okay.
go. Dude. That's how my
Yeah.
life goes.
Well, I appreciate you coming on. This was a lot of fun, good conversation, and I knew having Dean on a podcast about people living life on their terms, I knew it would be really good and there'd be a lot to add. So thank you. I appreciate it and looking forward to the next one. Yeah.
Can I leave a note for people
Yes.
before we go? Um, and this note here changed my life, man. Like, and it's really hard to actually eternalize this thought process, but you can have whatever you want if you're willing to work for it.
Mm,
And it's so basic, but it's so deep, right? And I say that because I'm a living example of it. I should be dead. I literally probably should have died multiple times. Like, there's no reason I should be alive. Um, I'm building a brand new home. I've got a son. I've got a wife. I've got everything I want, right? And it's not that it's like a bunch of fancy things, but these are the things that I want and I wanted to work toward. You can have anything you want. The discrepancy between the people that actually get those things and the ones that don't is the
mm,
work in the middle. And the work in the middle sometimes is more, sometimes it's better, but it's usually more and then it's better because your time will get capped out. There's only so many hours you can put into a day before you have to optimize that time. And
mm,
so, like, to get what you want, you have to be willing to do more. And then when more is no longer applicable, it's impossible, steer into better. How can I do better with my time? And then do more, but do it better. And then
mm,
you repeat this process over and over. That's how people get good. You have to put in
mm,
the work. You have to get better at the work. And then you have to put in more work while you're better. And it's like when you repeat that process, like none of the shit that James or I have is because we just like randomly were born with this skill set or we were born with anything special. James probably worked his tail off. I'd be willing to bet he did. I mean, dude, he's up at 6:30 a.m. on a podcast with me, which is just impressive because I'm usually at the gym. I don't want to do work before that. It's impressive. He's willing to do more. Be willing to do more and then do it better, and you will become amazing. But you have to continue putting in the effort. Like you
mm,
have to do it even when the result isn't there, because at some point or another, it will start paying off. And then when it does, it feels so good,
mm,
and then it stops feeling good. But like
mm.
at least you felt good for a second.
Yeah. And then off to the next.
On
But
to the
that's
next.
I appreciate that. That's an awesome way to finish up. So thanks for being on. And
Oh,
this was a lot of fun.
of course, dude. Of course. Glad to have you on.
Ha, cheers.